5 years had passed since Marcus Blackwood's infamous betrayal, and the underground kingdom of the trolls and goblins had prospered under his ruthless administration. The caverns, once merely a prison, had transformed into an elaborate labyrinth of torture chambers and work camps, each more efficient than the last. Marcus's reputation had grown to mythical proportions among both captors and captives, a cautionary tale whispered around dying fires about the depths of human treachery. However, fate has a peculiar way of weaving circles of justice, and Marcus's carefully constructed world was about to unravel thread by bloody thread. Among the newest batch of captured humans was a woman named Eleanor Vale, whose piercing green eyes seemed to cut through the darkness itself. She possessed an eerily familiar quality that Marcus couldn't quite place, though it haunted his increasingly restless nights. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Eleanor was the younger sister of one of the slaves he had betrayed 5 years ago, and she had allowed herself to be captured for one purpose alone: vengeance. Eleanor proved to be an exceptional slave, much as Marcus had once been. She worked tirelessly, showed appropriate deference to her captors, and never once betrayed the burning hatred that consumed her heart. The goblins, with their keen sense for deception, found nothing amiss in her behavior, for she had learned to mask not only her actions, but her very essence. As months passed, Eleanor began to understand the true complexity of the underground kingdom's power structure. The alliance between trolls and goblins was more fragile than it appeared, held together primarily by Marcus's careful manipulation. The trolls, with their brute strength and primitive hierarchies, secretly despised the goblins' cunning and technological sophistication. The goblins, in turn, viewed the trolls as little more than useful idiots, necessary but ultimately disposable allies. Eleanor saw in this division an opportunity, but she also discovered something far more disturbing. Deep in the lowest levels of the caverns, she found evidence that Marcus wasn't merely serving the creatures. He was conducting experiments on behalf of an even darker power. Ancient runes carved into hidden chambers suggested rituals of transformation, and the screams that echoed from behind certain doors spoke of something far worse than mere torture. Through careful observation and calculated risks, Eleanor managed to gain access to Marcus's private quarters as a personal servant. It was there that she discovered his journals, each page filled with increasingly maniacal writings about transcendence and the evolution of human consciousness through suffering. Marcus, it seemed, had not simply betrayed his fellow humans for power. He believed he was helping to birth a new species through the crucible of torment. But Eleanor's greatest discovery came in the form of an ornate medallion hidden behind a loose stone in Marcus's chamber. The artifact radiated an ancient power, and the markings upon it matched those found in the experimental chambers. This, she realized, was the true source of Marcus's authority over the trolls and goblins, a relic of forgotten magic that bound the creatures to his will. As Eleanor's understanding grew, so too did her influence among the slaves. Unlike Marcus's false hope of freedom, she offered something far more potent: the promise of justice. Through an intricate network of whispered messages and subtle signals, she began to build an army within the slave population, each member carefully chosen and tested for loyalty. Marcus, meanwhile, had begun to show signs of deterioration. The power that had preserved him for 5 years was exacting its toll. His skin had grown pale and translucent, his eyes sunken and rimmed with dark circles. In his more lucid moments, he seemed to recognize something in Eleanor, a shadow of his past that refused to stay buried. The reckoning began during the celebration of the decade's longest night, a festival that drew all manner of dark creatures to the underground kingdom. Eleanor's timing was precise and devastating. As Marcus prepared to conduct a grand ritual that would have bound the human slaves permanently to the kingdom through dark magic, she struck. The revolt she had orchestrated exploded through the caverns with the fury of 5 years of accumulated hatred. But this was no simple escape attempt. It was a carefully orchestrated coup. Eleanor had spent months teaching select slaves how to exploit the weaknesses of both trolls and goblins, how to turn their strengths against each other, and most importantly, how to break the magical bindings that held them in thrall. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the underground kingdom had ever witnessed. Slaves armed with stolen weapons and forbidden knowledge fought alongside rebellious goblins who had grown weary of troll dominance. The trolls, confused and enraged, lashed out at everyone, including their former allies. Marcus, realizing his kingdom was crumbling, retreated to his ritual chamber for a final, desperate attempt to complete his transformation. But Eleanor was waiting for him there, her green eyes now glowing with an inner fire that matched the power of his medallion. It was then that she revealed her true identity, not just as a sister seeking vengeance, but as the last descendant of an ancient line of human mages who had originally banished the trolls and goblins underground. The battle between them shook the very foundations of the caverns. Marcus, empowered by years of dark rituals and forbidden knowledge, had become something barely human. Eleanor, drawing upon both her ancestral magic and the collective will of hundreds of tortured souls, proved to be his equal. In the end, it wasn't magical power that decided their contest, but the weight of karma. As Marcus attempted to unleash his final, most terrible transformation, the spirits of those he had betrayed 5 years ago manifested through Eleanor's magic. Hundreds of ghostly hands emerged from the shadows, each belonging to someone whose trust he had betrayed, whose life he had destroyed. They pulled him down, not into death, but into something far worse, a state of eternal consciousness, trapped between life and death, sealed within the very walls of the kingdom he had helped build. His screams echoed through the caverns as his body dissolved into the stone, becoming one with the underground realm he had ruled so cruelly. Eleanor led the surviving humans to freedom, but she didn't stop there. Using the knowledge she had gained and the power she had inherited, she worked to heal the ancient rift between the surface world and the underground kingdoms. The trolls and goblins, freed from both Marcus's influence and their own worst instincts, began a slow process of redemption. Yet in the deepest, darkest parts of the caverns, if you press your ear to certain walls, they say you can still hear Marcus Blackwood's voice, not screaming now, but laughing. For in his final moments he had achieved the transformation he sought, though not in the way he had intended. He had indeed become something more than human, but his immortality would be spent as a cautionary tale, a whispered warning about the true price of betrayal. And Eleanor, she established a new order, one that balanced justice with mercy, punishment with redemption. The underground kingdom became a place where humans, trolls, and goblins could coexist, each contributing their unique strengths to create something greater than their individual parts. But she never forgot her brother, or the others who had died in Marcus's great betrayal. In their memory, she maintained an eternal flame in the heart of the kingdom, a reminder that the greatest darkness often comes not from monsters or creatures of legend, but from the choices we make in pursuit of power. The chronicles would later record that the true horror of Marcus's tale lay not in his betrayal or his punishment, but in the fact that until the very end, he believed he was right. In becoming a monster to fight monsters, he had fulfilled the most tragic of prophecies, becoming the very thing he had once sought to escape. And so the cycle turned, as it always does, leaving behind a tale that would be whispered in both the world above and the kingdom below, a story about the true nature of freedom, justice, and the terrible price of forgetting our humanity.